The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be for me? You man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So this video is nothing more than a warning of sorts. It's the calm before the storm, if you will. I know free agency starts on Wednesday, but the tampering period starts tomorrow. And I'm just here to let you know that the Commanders are going to be aggressive. They're going to be in the fray early. They're going to be in the fray often. You may not agree with a lot of the moves that are made. I don't think a lot of them are going to move the needle for you per se. I think there will be one or two, maybe even as many as 3 big splashes. But for the most part, it's going to be a lot of cog in the machine type of moves. 1-year deal here for a guy that you're not too in love with. Another 1-year deal for a guy over here. 2-year deal for this guy over here that you don't really care for. Another little deal over here. It's going to be a lot of those. They're going to pepper you to death. Pop, 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 pop. But I will tell you, also expect in this tampering period, because this is where a lot of the deals that will actually become official on Wednesday happen. In that Monday, Tuesday, I told you, those big names, Kirk Cousins, he's going to make a decision tomorrow. The Vikings and the Falcons seem like the 2 last teams vying for his availability. He's going to get nobody's finessed the game better than Kirk Cousins. Kirk, I'm seeing numbers like 2 years, $106 million, which is $53 million a year, and it's fully guaranteed. Nobody's finessed the system better than Kirk Cousins, man. You may not like him, but damn, you got to respect the hustle that is Kirk Cousins. So you're going to see guys like that make a decision. Danielle Hunter. The premium positions are coming off the board first. So understand that quarterback, edge rusher, cornerback, these are the positions, tackle, and there are not a lot of them to begin with, especially at the tackle position. These are the positions that are going to go like hotcakes, bow, 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 bow. So expect the Commanders to jump in there and be aggressive if they want a tackle, if they want a corner, if they want a quarterback, which I think they're going to go after a veteran quarterback. Now, to what degree? Like I've seen some people advocating for like a Ryan Tannehill. That's too good of a backup quarterback. Okay. Ryan Tannehill probably believes he can still start in the league. You don't want one of those guys. Okay. You want one of the guys that's kind of resigned to where they are in their career. I've seen Sam Darnold bandied about. Makes a little bit of sense because of Adam Peters being in San Francisco last year and Sam Darnold being in San Francisco last year. So I could see the connection there. Sam Darnold understands what he is in this league. He knows he's a backup quarterback, nothing more, nothing less. That's the kind of guy that you're probably targeting in free agency. Again, the Tyrod Taylors, Jameis Winston is fine, but I wouldn't go near him. You know, there's too much attention with Jameis Winston for a backup quarterback. You want those low-key guys to come in, put his head down, do what he's supposed to do, which is help mentor the young quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. I expect us to go after one of those guys. I expect us to go after an edge rusher or 2. I expect us to be aggressive in the cornerback market. I think we'll go after one of those pretty early. And so these are the positions. Now, I think there may be some secondary positions that Washington may be interested in. Add linebacker to that premium position list. I think the linebacker position is becoming more and more important. Like, you know, these things go in cycles. Once upon a time, linebackers was, you know, that position was a glorious position. It was one of the glamorous ones. And then it kind of fell on hard times. People started to devalue the position like they did the running back position. As you can see, the running back position is making a comeback now because this is going to be one of the biggest free agent running back off seasons that we've seen maybe ever. You know, Saquon's going to go quickly. Josh Jacobs is going to find a home relatively quickly. I think Derrick Henry's going to find a home very quickly. Tony Pollard's going to find a home very quickly. So you're going to see that market go very quickly. So again, you're going to see a lot of things happening very rapidly. Your head is going to be spinning. This is going to be one of the more exciting and fun, not just because we're going to be involved and heavily involved, I may add. It's not going to be just very exciting because we're going to be involved for the first time, it feels like, in a long time. But it's going to be exciting because it's going to be a lot of activity. It's going to feel like an NBA, trade deadline. It's going to feel like an MLB trade deadline type of atmosphere where anything can happen. It's going to be aggressive. It's going to be fast and furious. Guys are going to be flying around everywhere. I remember when this free agency thing first really started to take shape and people started to really be interested in this, and deals weren't announced until literally 4:00 on the day of free agency. So, they'd have these deals in place, but they couldn't announce it. And NFL Network would do this whole free agency frenzy thing, which they probably still do, but nobody watches anymore because all the social media information gets broken and people are getting their information off of Twitter and IG and things of that nature. So nobody watches that anymore, but you had to watch it back in those days. That's where all the information was being disseminated. This is what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel like, oh my God, boom, 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 bang, 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 bang. It's going to be fun to see how Washington navigates these sometimes very murky free agency waters. They can be murky at times. I expect them to be aggressive. I expect them to leave a footprint. I expect them to go in and go after guys that fit what they're trying to do. Again, I don't think you're going to love all of the names. I've been trying to put your mind into a space where you can be ready to accept whatever comes. No matter whether you love it, you hate it, you're indifferent, just understand that it's a part of the process. When you're rebuilding, I know they don't want to use that word, but I'm telling you, that's what this is. It's a rebuild. They can call it a recalibration. That's fine. Whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing, right? Different name, same shit. This is what it looks like, all right? This is what it looks like. This is what a rebuild looks like. This is what a recalibration looks like, all right? A lot of new bodies, not a lot of turning over the roster. It begins tomorrow. Free agency officially begins Wednesday. It begins tomorrow. When that tampering period hits, you're going to start seeing names flying around, and you're going to start seeing teams agreeing in principle. Again, nothing is official until Wednesday. Ink hits paper, ink dries on paper. But you're going to start to see a lot of agreeing in principle. Okay. And at that point, that's when shit gets serious. And that's going to happen at some point tomorrow. I would think that the NFL would force guys like Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and all these insiders to not be able to release any information until after 4 p.m. tomorrow, because the tampering period doesn't actually begin until 48 hours prior to free agency. Free agency doesn't actually begin until 4 p.m. on Wednesday. So I would think that the tampering period wouldn't begin until 4 p.m. tomorrow. That said, we'll see how that goes. We could wake up tomorrow and it could be a whole bunch of foolishness going on. All right. I've seen us linked to guys like Patrick Queen. I don't believe it. You got to prove that to me. I don't think we're going to be that aggressive at that position. You got to show me. I think we're going to be aggressive at certain positions. Linebacker isn't one of them. I think we're going to go out. I think Devin White is fully in play here. And I've said that already. And I'm intrigued by Devin White. And I think that's the kind of guy that they're going to go after because it's not going to cost them as much money. I think they are going to be willing to spend at certain positions. I don't think linebacker is one of them. Not in that manner, because Patrick Queen, you could argue, and I'm trying to go through the mental Rolodex right now, I think he's going to be the highest paid linebacker in free agency this year, right? I don't think there's another high-profile linebacker that tops Patrick Queen in availability this free agency period. I think he's the guy. And so if, in fact, he is the biggest name, he's going to be paid the most. I don't see us doing that. Now, I could be wrong because I told you, expect 1, 2, as many as 3. I don't see any more than 3, big names that are getting paid that we are paying. I can see that, okay? And if Queen is one of them, I'll be shocked. I won't be upset about it, but I'll be shocked. I don't think they're going to spend that kind of money at linebacker. With the other players that are available, and the guys that you can get, I don't think you need to spend what it's going to take to get Patrick Queen signed up here in Washington. I wouldn't do it. I know that much, which is why I made my list. I showed you my list. I told you who I would target. Queen's not on that list because I'm not willing to pay Patrick Queen the kind of money that it's going to take to get him signed on the dotted line. I think a lot of his play might have been he might have been a beneficiary of what you saw from the acquisition of Roquan Smith. I think he got better when Roquan Smith showed up. You take him away from Roquan Smith, is he the same linebacker? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not willing to pay $80 million to figure it out, though. That's just my opinion on that. But we'll see. They're going to spend that money. There are certain positions that I'd be willing to go in, and spend up and just make it rain, right? At certain positions. Linebacker isn't one of them. Feel like you can, cut a few corners at linebacker, find some guys. It's going to cost, but it's not going to cost Patrick Queen money, right? So we'll see what they decide to do. But I'm just here to warn you. Enjoy the ride. It could get a little bumpy, but enjoy the ride. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be excited about this week. And just another side note, the videos, the live streams, the activity on the channel is going to be nuts this week, as you could imagine, because the information is going to be coming at us fast and furious. So there will be no rhyme or reason necessarily to the coverage that you get. I'm going to be pretty much hitting the gas pedal and flooring it the entire week until this thing settles down. And it probably won't settle down until we get close to the weekend. Expect tomorrow to be crazy, Tuesday to be crazy, Wednesday, because it's the first official day. Everything that happened Monday and Tuesday becomes official on Wednesday. And then you're still getting activity Wednesday. Thursday, the guys you signed on Wednesday might start hitting the facility, showing up for press conferences, maybe Friday, that sort of stuff. You sign the big names. Those guys start showing up, signing their contracts, and then you start having guys show up and do press conferences, things of that nature. So I don't think the dust starts to settle for the first week of free agency until maybe Friday, where it might start to calm down. You'll still hear guys getting signed Friday, Saturday into the weekend. Then you get into week 2 next week, and that's when you start to see that secondary market. That's when I think Washington will start, parsing through some of the running backs if they're interested. I don't think you need to do anything at running back personally, but they might start parsing through the running backs. They may start parsing through some receivers if they're interested, some core special team guys at linebacker, safety, things of that nature, filling out the roster, right? Filling in the blanks here and there. That's where you'll start to see teams looking in the bargain bins for a guy here. That's when you get to a Oren Burks, right? That I talked about that could be here in Washington as a linebacker and, of course, special teamer. That's when you start to get to some of those guys. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Washington active in that secondary market as well, because, again, we're turning over the roster. And when you're turning over the roster, it means you're active early and often. That's why I said, buckle up. This is going to be a fast and furious ride, and it's not going to be over as quickly as it usually is. It's funny. Somebody sent me a message. I want to say it was like 2 days ago or so. It was like 2 days ago, because the NFL sent out their compensatory picks, and they sent out a bunch of them, and Washington didn't get a single one. I think it was my guy, Derek B. Shout out to my guy, Derek B. And he said, somebody's always eyeballing your stuff. Apparently, they're not eyeballing our stuff. I laughed, I chuckled, because somebody is always eyeballing your stuff. The problem was over the last 4 years with Rivera, if you think about it, we turned over the roster when Rivera got here, but everybody that was here because of Rivera, they didn't leave, right? Think about it. All the guys that they brought in from the first year, right? The J.D. McKissicks, the Logan Thomases, the Cornelius Lucases, the Wes Schweitzers. For the most part, those guys stayed the entire Rivera duration, with the exception of like a Wes Schweitzer, J.D. McKissick. Like the last year of Ron, Wes Schweitzer left. JD was released and didn't get another job because of his neck or the concussions. I think it was his neck. But think about it. The Logan Thomases and the rest of those guys that they brought in that first year, they were all here. All the draft picks, they were all here the next year. We were never really aggressive in free agency, right? So with Curtis Samuel still here, right? He'll be gone after this year because I think he's going to get signed in free agency by another team. We signed William Jackson III. Obviously, that was a disaster. He ended up getting traded to Pittsburgh. He didn't even pass their physical and didn't play another game in the NFL. His career is over, right? So think about everything that was done. All the draft picks made the roster. We didn't really sign anybody in free agency for real. You know, everything was kind of mild. Like, that's why the cap is in such great health. We didn't spend any money, really. They didn't go out. They weren't aggressive. They didn't do anything crazy with the money, which I can actually appreciate now because it put us in the position that we're in right now to be able to spend where we think we got a chance to really build this the right way, instead of them coming in here, throwing money all around, and then we look up and the books are in hell, salary caps in the dumps, and now we got to try to dig ourselves out of there before we can even try to start fixing the problem. We can just start building now because the cap is situated. You know, we got draft capital. Everything is where it needs to be, so we can just hit the ground running, right? So I can appreciate that. But when you think about it, everybody that they brought in here, they kept them here, right? They signed them to deals that coincided with how long they would be here. Kendall Fuller, he got signed in 2020, signed a 4-year deal, right? Now Rivera's gone after year 4, and so now Kendall Fuller's gone. Like, they did everything intentionally. The guys that they signed to 1 or 2 year deals, they signed them again to 1 or 2 year deals. All right. Like Charles Leno Jr. signed him to a 1-year deal. They liked him. They signed him to a 3-year deal after that. Right. Now he's gone now. Logan Thomas signed him to a 2-year deal, liked him, signed him to another 2-year deal. He's gone now, though. Right. So they signed everything to kind of coincide. Curtis Samuel, they brought him here, signed him to a 3-year deal. His 3-year deal is up. Right. That was the 2nd year that Ron was here. So everything they did set it up so that those guys would be here while they were here. So to me, that's why there's no compensatory picks available for Washington, because we weren't aggressive in free agency. And meanwhile, guys that we brought here weren't leaving in free agency, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, somebody said Ron did nothing here. Yeah, pretty much. All right. He went and got guys that he wanted here, and that was it. Like, it wasn't a lot of outside stuff. Draft, you know, free agents when he first got here, and then he kind of supplemented every year with 1 or 2 extra guys. And it was a lot of low-level free agents, right? You know, like we did last year. You know, the year before that, it was the 2 Carolina guards, right? We never did anything major in free agency when he was here, other than Curtis Samuel and William Jackson III in 2021. That was the only year where we really spent real money in free agency. Other than that, we never really spent anything. So there was nothing there to be gained. But I'm excited. I really am looking forward to this free agency period. Really think that you're going to see Washington aggressive for the first time in what feels like a long time. We haven't been really aggressive in free agency, and not because I want to go back to the Dan Snyder days of firing up Redskins 1 to go pick up free agents left and right. I don't want guys past their prime. You know, I don't want to pay guys for what they did for another organization. The point of free agency is to pay for what guys can do for you in the future, right? You use their past performances as an indicator of what's to come. We used to give guys big, massive paydays based off of what they've done. Their career is almost over, and they're looking for that last payday. Their best football far behind them, way in the rear view, and we would give them money based off of what they had done, not what they were going to do for us. That time is come and gone, and I don't think that's coming back. So that's why I'm excited, because I actually think we got a group that's going to do it the right way this time around. All right. So now, I wasn't here to talk your head off. I just wanted to let you know this is the calm before the storm. Tomorrow is going to be nuts. And the news is going to be flying around. Be careful. I tell you this all the time. It's still lion season. And look, get your information from reputable sources. Don't be up here on some random ass Twitter account and don't at me on no bullshit. If it ain't from Ian Rappaport, if it ain't from Adam Schefter, if it ain't from Ari, don't at me. Okay. Some random, Joe Schmo on Twitter talking about something, because you're going to see a lot of people trying to get you tomorrow. Be safe out here in these social media streets, people. Please don't at me from a tweet from 2018. Okay. Don't at me on a tweet from some random dude. I told you some kid about to go to soccer practice, cooking fish sticks in his mom's kitchen. He's 13 years old. Don't do that. All right. Get your stuff from, and don't get it from a fake Adam Schefter account. Don't get it from a fake Ian Rappaport account. Okay. Please dot your I's. It takes you 2 seconds to find out if it's the real account or not. Just click on it. All right. Just click on the thumbnail and you see 8 million followers. You go, okay, this is really Adam Schefter. Okay. Or you just look at the actual, just look at his actual tag and you'll see, right? Just pay attention to the small granular details, please. Okay. A lot of y'all get so excited and then you start retweeting stuff, atting people. Relax, breathe, woosah. Okay. All right. Just wanted to let you know it's going to be okay. Okay. It's going to be fun. A lot of fast and furious information coming at you from all angles. What's true, what's not true. At the end of the day, we're going to discuss it all. Okay. But tomorrow is going to be crazy. And that's all I wanted to convey to you is tomorrow is going to be wild. You might as well say free agency starts tomorrow, if we're being honest. And with the amount of money that Washington has to spend and the amount of things that have to get done, expect Washington to be aggressive from the word go, from the jump. All right. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. I ain't going to hold y'all hostage tonight. John Perez, my guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, good to see you as always, Lou. Likewise, JP. What do you think about the center market? Maybe sign a guy like Mitch Morse. I told you I'm not interested in Mitch Morse. They could be interested in the center, though. We're going to find out how they feel about giving we're going to find out what they think about the center position and if they're going to give Ricky Stromberg an opportunity or not. Because if they go out and they're aggressive and they sign a center, like an actual real starting center, then Ricky Stromberg's probably not going to get an opportunity to start a center. And that's fine. I'm not going to be upset if they don't start Ricky Stromberg at center. I'm just thinking I don't mind them getting like a guy to come in here and compete just in case Ricky isn't ready for that role or he's not the guy, right? I don't mind, but I wouldn't overspend. Like last year, even though it wasn't a whole bunch, them going out and getting Nick Gates when they knew they wanted to draft a guy like Ricky Stromberg. And again, obviously you don't know how the draft is going to end up and you don't know how the board is going to shake out. And maybe their intention wasn't to draft Ricky Stromberg in the third round. And then they looked at the board and all the options that they wanted weren't there. And they said, well, we really like Ricky Stromberg. Let's just go ahead and take him. And they did, right? But them signing Nick Gates made it tough for them to put Ricky Stromberg on the field. And I'm not trying to put Ricky Stromberg in that position again. I would like to see them, like, if you're paying a guy real money, then that guy's probably going to start. And I just feel like if you drafted Ricky, and again, this is the thing, they didn't draft Ricky Stromberg. They didn't draft Braden Daniels. So to them, those guys are no different than Cam Curl or Kendall Fuller or, you know, any of the other guys, Curtis Samuel, that are free agents right now. They could care less, right? Those aren't their guys. They inherited this entire roster. None of these guys are here because of them, so they could really care less about a lot of the guys that are here. That includes the draft picks from last year. If they didn't love those guys where they were, scouting them from afar, and now they're here, like, they liked Quan Martin. They liked Emmanuel Forbes, so they're excited to work with those guys. They may not have liked Ricky Stromberg. They may not have. I didn't even like Braden Daniels. I hated the pick. They overdrafted the kid. He would not have made the roster, which is why they had to put him on IR. They had to save face. They were going to have to cut a 4th-round pick. They effed up. So they could come in here and say, don't love the Braden Daniels kid, didn't love him last year when he was coming out of Utah. Ricky Stromberg's cool, but I don't view him as the answer at center. So they may go out and get a guy at center. And I'd be okay with that. I just feel like the guy played in the SEC, played against high-level competition, guys that are in the NFL as we speak. I think he can handle the rigors of the NFL. Give him an opportunity to prove that he can. And if he can't, we got a bunch of guys on the roster. And if you go out and you sign another guy to come in here and compete, so be it. I don't think you should go out and sign a guy like Mitch Morse, though, to me. Because if you sign Mitch Morse is at the point of his career where he's coming in here to start. He's not coming in here to back up Ricky Stromberg. He's coming in here to start. You want to sign a guy like, I think the Panthers just released Bozeman. You want to sign Bozeman? Sure, go ahead, knock yourself out, okay? Because if he's not starting, it's not a big deal. You're not paying him a bunch of money. Knock yourself out, okay? I don't think I would be aggressive. I would be looking for a center on the secondary market, meaning next week. Dust settles, smoke clears. You know, a lot of the money is dried up, and now the secondary market comes into focus. Now I'll go get me a center. That's not something I attack on the first day of the tampering period or the second day or the actual first day of free agency and the start of the new league year. That's not something I even look to address next week. If there's a guy I like next week and he's just sitting there, okay, cool. You probably could even do it after the draft, to be honest with you. There'll still be some guys available after the draft. Teams will cut players after the draft because you don't cut guys unless you have to. There's a roster bonus, some sort of, incentive that kicks in prior to the draft. So then, yes, you have to cut them if you don't want to pay them that. But if you don't have anything like that that's hindering you, you just hold on to a guy. See what happens in the draft. And if you get a guy in the draft, then you can cut bait with that player, right? That's what we did with Morgan Moses when we drafted Sam Cosmi. We held on to Morgan Moses because we didn't know if we were going to get the tackle. We got the tackle in Sam Cosmi, then they cut Morgan Moses. That could happen too. So, we'll see. Rob Yu, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, what up, Lou? What's up, Rob Yu? Chin, Okuda, and Becton would be great additions here. You know how I feel about every last one of those guys. You're talking about 2 former first-round picks and a second-rounder. All high-level talents, all guys that, for whatever reason, didn't work in their first stops, who I think are immensely talented and could definitely work with this new coaching staff. But, we're not the only ones out there. It's as simple as that. Like, as much as we would like to get our hands on some of these guys, there are other teams that are just as desperate, as thirsty, as we are. And they need to upgrade their, tackle position just like we do. They need to upgrade their safety position just like we do. They need to upgrade their cornerback position just like we do. And sometimes you're looking for a cheaper alternative. A Jeff Okuda is a cheaper alternative. Still young, however, and talented, but a cheaper alternative nonetheless. Everyone's looking for one of those, right? And unless you're the 49ers or you're the Bills or you're the Chiefs, where you expect to win a Super Bowl next year, then you're not looking for a Jeff Okuda. You're looking for an established corner. You're looking for Darius Williams. You're looking for Kendall Fuller. You're looking for a guy that can come in right now, help you win right now. You're not looking for a 25-year-old Jeff Okudah who's still trying to find his way in the NFL. You leave that for the teams like Washington, like Chicago, that are trying to figure it out, that are trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, like Tennessee, right? You're not worried about that if you're an upper echelon team, so I would love to add those guys. I don't think we're going to add every single one of those guys, but I think we can get 2 out of the 3 of them. But again, we're not the only ones after those 3 guys in particular. So, we'll see. Will Diggs, been a member for 17 months. Really appreciate you. My guy Will writes, I love you, Lou. No homo. You know what, Will? I love you too, man. I appreciate you, dude. Thank you. Atomic Ant, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Atomic Ant writes, 49ers released Eric Armstead. Is that true? I mean, that's a major guy hitting the market if they did. Yeah, 49ers to release Eric Armstead. And that is interesting. So your question is, maybe to Washington. Obviously, the direct correlation to Adam Peters makes you wonder, but no, I don't see that, right? Like, think about it from this standpoint. Eric Armstead is going to go somewhere. This man has been on a team that has been in the NFC Championship game 4 out of the last 5 years and has been in the Super Bowl twice in that 5-year span. Do you really think he's trying to go to a team like Washington who's trying to figure it out, or is he going to try to go to a team that he thinks he can help try to win a Super Bowl? He still hasn't won a Super Bowl, by the way. He's better served going somewhere like Buffalo. He's better served going somewhere. Remember, the Dolphins did not re-sign, Christian Wilkins, right? So there are going to be other teams. Like, there are a number of teams that were hoping Chris Jones hit the free agent market. The Chiefs were never going to let that happen, right? Obviously, you saw the massive deal that he got. So there are teams that missed out on Chris Jones that are looking at Eric Armstead and saying, hey, well, now we got a contingency plan in place. Now, we didn't before. Now we do. Christian Wilkins was probably going to be the first guy up. He may still be the first guy up. But Armstead has entered the chat. He's going to make things interesting. I don't think we factor into that because we got 2 starting defensive tackles. Eric Armstead is going to get paid good money. We've already dumped enough resources into the defensive line at the defensive tackle position in particular. We got 4 defensive tackles already on the roster. Who you getting rid of to bring in Eric Armstead, and then who you moving to the bench? Now, if we were to trade Jonathan Allen, then that would have made some sense, right? But to sign him when you still got Allen, when you still got Payne, that doesn't make any sense, right? And you still got Fedarian Mathis, and you still got John Ridgeway. You got 4 good, solid defensive tackles already on the roster. Eric Armstead doesn't make any sense here. So instead of spending that money on another defensive tackle, which we've already spent money on defensive tackle, you get you a defensive end, which is what we need more than a defensive tackle. So I don't see that happening tonight. I don't see that happening in free agency for us, but definitely for another team, right? Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, Chris, man, as always, really, truly do appreciate you and all that you do. Hope you and the family are doing fantastic. It says 3 questions. 1, who do you think starts at DN for us this year, getting one in free agency and the draft? 2, what do you think of Baker re-signing with Tampa and the deal? And 3, how do you think the left guard situation is going to be handled and why? So who do I think starts for us at DN this year? I do think it's going to be 1 guy in free agency and 1 guy in the draft, potentially. I think I've made up my mind that I will be shocked. It'll be an upset if Dorrance Armstrong doesn't end up here. I've wired my brain, preconditioned it to think that Dorrance Armstrong is going to be signed here in Washington. So he's a pretty safe bet for me right now. If you ask me, of all the former Cowboys that could end up here, which one has the best chance? I'll tell you, it's Dorrance Armstrong. So I think Dorrance Armstrong will be starting at one defensive end position, and then the other will be manned up by a rookie in this draft class to be named later. Okay. As far as the second question, Baker's deal, expected him to go back to Tampa, especially after they got Mike Evans done. And then they franchise tagged Antoine Winfield Jr. You could see the writing on the wall. They were trying to get the band back together and make a run at it again. They not only made it to the playoffs, won the division, but they won a playoff game and could have easily beaten Detroit in that playoff game. So they want to run it back, clearly. And I knew they wanted to get Baker back in the fold. They did. The deal is set up so that if Baker performs, he gets paid. If he doesn't, they can get out, right? So it's a win-win for all parties involved. If Baker hits a bunch of incentives and landmarks, he'll get all of his money. If he doesn't, they can get out of the deal and not feel like they're trapped. So it's one of those deals that makes sense for both sides. It's protection for the Bucks, and it's incentive-based for Baker. He still gets his money, right, and guarantees and things of that nature. And then there's still some more money in there that's hidden that he can get his hands on should he perform the way that he did last season. So there's that carrot dangling in front of him to go out and perform the way that he did. And that they needed that protection because we've talked about good Baker and bad Baker. They got good Baker last year. He's every other year guy, right? So first year was good Baker. The second year of his career was bad Baker. The third year was excellent Baker. They made the playoffs, won a playoff game. The next year was bad Baker, and then they traded him that offseason. All right, and then all hell broke loose, right? And that next year was terrible. All right, then they signed him last year, and they got excellent Baker again. Now, if the trend repeats itself, they should get a down year from Baker. So they needed to protect themselves. So we'll see what happens. And then lastly, how do you think the left guard position is going to be handled and why? That's an interesting question because I don't really know. I could see a scenario in which I've already told you, I don't think you have to be super aggressive at guard, nor center. If you ask me, I think more people might be a little bit more cautious with center than I am. I want to see what Ricky Stromberg's all about, but I don't think you have to do anything you don't want to do. Like at tackle, you got to do something. I don't think you should be comfortable going into the draft needing 2 tackles. Whereas guard, there are a number of options, even just on the roster still. You may not love them, right? But I mean, you still got Chris Paul, who played a lot for us last year. You still have the option of taking Andrew Wiley and maybe kicking him over to left guard and having him play there. You still have a guy that we drafted in the 4th round and Braden Daniels, who could play there. Mason Brooks was an undrafted free agent that we brought in that still may be able to, and they were interested. Obviously, they're interested in him too because they brought him back, right? So they re-signed him, brought him back onto the signed to a futures contract. So he's going to be back on the roster, at least into camp, right? So there's options at guard. Like you don't have to force anything. So if the number's right and the guy that you like is there as a free agent and everything makes sense and he's a great fit, boom, you do it. That's not the case, then you don't push that button. You go into the draft. I don't think you push that button either unless you have to, because we got so many other pressing needs, right? So I think guard is interesting because you could get one in free agency, you could get one in the draft, or you could do nothing at guard and it still be okay. Would we love it? I don't know about that, but we could understand it, right? So I think that's the one position on that offensive line that I really don't know what direction they're going to go. We know they're going to be aggressive at tackle, whether it's a combination of free agency and the draft or it's just the draft. But we know they're going to be aggressive at tackle. We know, that they're going to be aggressive at edge rusher, whether it be a combination of free agency and the draft or just the draft. or just free agency, right? But we know they're going to be aggressive there. We don't know if they're going to be aggressive at all at left guard because they don't necessarily have to. So we'll see. John Perez, my guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Swift is the perfect Kingsbury running back, and he'd be our rookie quarterback's best friend. Again, you know, I have said that I'd love to see DeAndre Swift here in Washington. I just don't see it happening. I don't see him joining this team for whatever reason. Excuse me. I don't know if, because one thing, I've said this already, I think DeAndre Swift probably sees himself as a starting running back. We already have a starting running back. His name is Brian Robinson Jr. So I'm not looking to remove Brian Robinson Jr. I've been advocating for him to get more touches, not less. So a guy like DeAndre Swift would be perfect if he understood what his role was. I think he sees himself as a 20 a game touch guy. So if that's the case, that's not how I envision him being utilized here. I'm looking for a change of pace guy that might touch it 7 to 10 times in a game. 10 is on the high side, but he'll make his presence felt with those limited touches that he's going to get. You can get that guy in the draft. The Tennessee running back looks really good to me. He's got that kind of speed that I'm looking for. But again, we won't be the only team looking at, and there's not a ton of those guys in this year's draft with that kind of speed. So I think that'll be a guy that's a hot commodity as soon as the running backs have their, people start turning their attention, teams start turning their attention to the running backs. He'll be one of the first ones off the board, I believe, because of that game-breaking speed. So Swift is interesting. I just don't think he ends up here, but I would love it. I would love to see it happen. I just don't see it happening. Journey Reed, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Journey Reed, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, why would Jacksonville trade for Mac Jones? Am I missing something? Maybe a solid backup, I'm guessing. That's exactly what they're doing. He was cheap. I don't know what the compensation was, but it's not going to cost you a lot when a team's trying to offload a guy that they want nothing to do with. It probably cost them a 5th or a 6th round pick. Might have been a conditional 6 that could turn into a 5th or something like that. It's not going to be and matter of fact, being that it's prior to the draft, I would assume that they know what the compensation is. Maybe it's one pick and then a swapping of another pick where the Patriots get a pick where Jacksonville may be ahead of them and they swap picks or something like that. It's not going to be it's not going to be anything major, right? So it's a low cost backup option for Trevor Lawrence. And it makes a lot of sense. Trevor Lawrence dealt with some injuries this past season. You hope that you don't have to incur that again because you need him out there. But in the event that he gets banged up, part of the reason they weren't able to make the playoffs is because, they weren't able to beat Cincinnati at home when Trevor Lawrence got banged up and their backup quarterback had to come in the game, right? And I want to say their backup was C.J. Beathard, and he wasn't able to get it done in overtime, right? Those are the kind of games you need to find a way to win, and maybe they feel like Mac Jones gives them a better chance to do that. And again, Mac Jones is a guy that needs a fresh start. Shit got real shitty for him in New England quick. And so a fresh start for him. He gets to clear his head, reshuffle the deck, and see what happens as a backup, in Jacksonville. And you'll see what happens. But it makes sense, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. It's no different than what Dallas did with Trey Lance, right? No different. Go get a guy. His stock is low. You don't have to give up a ton to get him. And you just see what happens. Trey Lance may never play for the Dallas Cowboys. He may not. Mac Jones may never play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He may or he may not. But you just never know. You just never know. I saw you. Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones, the mickety Mac, Bo, the mickety Mac. All right. So tomorrow we will be here early. I would assume we're going to see Washington get in the mix very quickly, and I'm expecting us to jump in the fray quickly. And as that news starts to trickle out, I'm probably going to jump on live. We'll see how, the day goes and when that information starts to become available. The earlier, the better for me. The later, I may just wait until that night. It just all depends on how it comes out. But expect, once it starts, it's not going to stop. You'll go to sleep and wake up and there'll be 2-3 moves that have been made that are major. It might not be for Washington, but it's going to be continuous, right? Once it starts on Monday with the tampering period, it's not going to stop probably for a good 72 hours. It's going to be crazy. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is going to be crazy. It won't start to slow down a bit until Thursday or so. The first 72 hours, because the first 48 are tampering, hours and tampering days. Then the official day, still gonna be a lot of news going around, and then I think it'll start to die down a bit by Thursday. You'll still see some things happening, and then obviously you'll get some of those press conferences of guys that have signed, etc., etc. So anyway, I digress. I just wanted you guys to be aware that I'm gonna be here, but know that it's gonna be an aggressive free agency approach, something that we haven't seen here in probably 5 or 6 years. The end of Jay Gruden's run wasn't very aggressive. I'll tell you what it'll feel like for some of you. It'll feel like Bruce Allen's in charge again, except these moves will actually carry weight. It won't be Jaron Johnson and Stephen Paya and Chris Culliver, right? It won't be those guys. It'll feel like it to some of you, okay? It'll feel like we're just getting as many cheap bodies as we can and feeling good about shopping at the Dollar Tree on the clearance rack. These guys all will serve a purpose. Like I feel confident that they're gonna go out here, and I'm aware of what's going on. And I'm ready for it. I'm prepared for it. And I want you to be as well, which is why I've been trying to get you to precondition your brain to understand that there's going to be a lot of moves made. Some of them you'll love, some of them you won't. They're going to be some big ones too. I don't expect it to be a whole bunch of, 1 year, 2 years. Everything is going to be working towards a larger goal, which is to fill out this roster with guys that are going to buy into what they're trying to do, to help them get to a point where they feel comfortable with the roster and you're not having to go out and do what we're doing this year. The goal is do this year, have to do less of it next year, and then by year 3, now it's all about the draft and then supplementing the roster here and there with a few free agents. We're at the point where we need free agency. You don't ever want to need free agency. You need the draft. You don't need free agency. You want free agency. We need free agency. We don't have the bodies on the roster right now. So we need free agency. And we're going to look like a team that needs free agency. Devondre, Zolife, no life. Been a member for 11 months. Appreciate you. Right. Devondre Campbell and Calvin Ridley reunion, maybe. Reunion with who? Was Devondre Campbell in Atlanta with Dan Quinn? This feels like a long time ago. Maybe he was. Maybe Calvin Ridley was in Atlanta with him too. Was he? Feels like Ridley might have been after Dan, but he probably was like at the back end of Quinn. Probably was at. It feels like he was at the back end of Quinn. I wouldn't touch either one of those dudes. I'm good on both of them. I'm not interested in Devondre Campbell or Calvin Ridley. Again, the only receiver that I think could have value here would be Hollywood Brown because of his, like, remember, Dan Quinn knows Calvin Ridley, but Dan Quinn isn't on the offensive side of the football. Cliff Kingsbury is. So I'm thinking more along the lines of guys that make sense for Cliff. So Calvin Ridley doesn't move the needle for Dan Quinn, I don't think. So he wouldn't be one that I think they would be all that, interested with. I'm thinking more of Hollywood Brown because of his involvement with Cliff Kingsbury back in Arizona, similar to Zach Ertz. So that'd be the only guy that I think they might do anything. I've heard Tyler Boyd's name thrown out there by somebody. I mean, cool if you want to do that. I wouldn't, but it's whatever. I'd rather go in the draft and get a Tyler Boyd, personally. But, you can do a hell of a lot worse than Tyler Boyd. I'll say that. So, anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. I didn't want to talk your head off. I just wanted to come in here and kind of prep you for what tomorrow is going to be. It's going to be crazy. I'm excited about it. I haven't been this excited for free agency probably in a long time. I don't even know the last time I've been excited for free agency, because for a while there, free agency it had a stigma for us as fans. For those of you who have been fans of this team for long enough, there was a stigma attached to free agency. Oh, here we go again, trying to win in March, right? That's a long time ago. That I'm not even worried about that no more. That's not even how my brain is wired anymore. So I'm over that. Those guys aren't here anymore. That's not how we operate. We haven't operated in that space. Bruce Allen didn't even operate in that space. That was some Vinny Serrato, Dan Snyder shit. You got to go way, way back in the time machine for that. So I'm past that. I'm not even tripping off of that. And so I'm excited for the first time in a long time for free agency. And I think I know what to expect. I don't see many curveballs coming, but there may be one or two. But I'm going to leave you with this. Expect quarterback, tackle, if they're going to go that route, corner, edge rusher, to be the first four positions that they look to address. Corner, edge rusher, tackle, quarterback. All premium positions. Linebacker is a fifth position that I think if they really love a guy, they may go after aggressively as well. So those five positions. Any other positions, I'll be shocked. I don't see them going after a tight end. I don't see them going after a running back. I don't see them going after an interior offensive lineman, although they could early on in the process. I see tackle, quarterback, edge rusher, linebacker, potentially quarterback, if I haven't already said that. So corner, quarter, edge, tackle, linebacker. Those five positions are the ones that I expect them to be aggressive at. And and maybe safety. It just depends on how that market. I know you saw that that the Bears signed Kevin Byard to a 2-year, $14 million deal. You think Kevin Byard's stupid? He knows what's about to happen to this safety market. I'm not waiting. He could have waited. I'm not waiting. Because they about to get shitted on. These dudes that think they about to eat, I've already told you, only two guys are eating in this market. Xavier McKinney and Justin Simmons. Everybody else ain't making the kind of bread that they think they making. This safety market is about to depress a lot of dudes' value. Don't dismiss Cam Curl coming back home. Everybody said Cam Curl couldn't come back home. You know when Cam Curl heard that? When he was back home. Don't dismiss him coming back to the crib. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. But hopefully we get our hands on Jeremy Chin. Barry Curtis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Barry Curtis says, man, or many saw BSJ as a safety coming out. Would love to see him there. J-Ron Curse role. Think he does well against tight ends? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because is he a good enough tackler? Is he instinctual enough? I don't know if I trust him in that role. You have to be extremely heady and smart and physical. I'm not saying that he's not physical, but I've seen him miss tackles that I expected him to make. I think he's aggressive enough with his hands. He's very grabby, so I think he could, really do well in that regard. But I don't know if he would be the guy that I would transition to safety. But his skill set probably speaks to that, But he'll be interesting. I've heard Dan Quinn already talk about guys on the roster and whether they were safeties or corners, and a lot of people thought when he said that he was talking about Benjamin St. Juste. So we'll see. Could be something to note. I do want to read this Super 2 that somebody had left. I think it might have been from my last show, and I missed it. They sent it on the way out, and I didn't get to it. It was from Joseph's Journey. Shout out to Miss Perry for sending me this. Joseph's Journey writes, 2025 first and Dotson to move up. Let's get Caleb. I am not interested in giving up next year's first round pick, and I'm not interested in giving up Jahan Dotson. Now, here's the fear. We talked about the 2021 NFL draft, and this draft is going to shape up a lot like that draft. That had 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. I think this draft is going to have, at a bare minimum, 5 quarterbacks go in the first. It could have a record-setting 6. That my guess is Michael Penix Jr. ends up in the second round, and it's 5. Or Bo Nix ends up in the second round, and it's 5. Somebody's not making it to the first round. That said, that draft in 2021 went 1, 2, 3 at quarterback. Then it was another guy at like 10. I think it was Fields at 10, and then Jones was at like 14 or something like that. This draft is going to be a lot like that. 1, 2, 3. There could be another one in the top 10, then another one somewhere in that 10 to 14 range. Look at what happened in that draft. Only one guy remains with the team that drafted him. The other 3 of them have been traded, or Trey Lance and Mac Jones have been traded. Fields looks like he's going to be traded. And obviously, Zach Wilson is either going to be released or traded. So there's a lot of prevailing thought that this draft could end up like that draft. And only one guy remains standing, and that's the guy that went first. I choose not to view it from that lens, but it's a thing. And as my guy Joe Rockhead talked about, when quarterbacks go 1, 2 in the draft, usually, and we're 2, it doesn't matter about 3, 7, 10, any of that shit. When quarterbacks go 1 and 2 in the draft, generally one, if not both of them, don't succeed. So am I a little nervous? Yeah, I'm a little nervous, but trends and streaks like that are made to be broken. And who's to say we don't get the guy that ultimately turns out to be successful if there's only one that turns out to be successful? I'm a glass half full guy, so I'm an optimist, but I'm not looking to trade up for Caleb Williams. Just looking to get the best quarterback we can get at 2 and move on. And hope we're right. That's all you can do. Coach them up, put them in the best position to succeed, and hope that you're right. They've got to do all the work on the back end as far as the mental capacity is concerned. How he takes in information. Does he love football? Is he a leader? Can he overcome adversity, et cetera, et cetera. They got to try to find out all of that information and then couple it with the film and make the right decision. And we'll see. You know, this is an inexact science. As Adam Peters has already attested, he failed and whiffed on Paxton Lynch when he was in. Now, I say he loosely. He was a part of the brain trust that not only drafted Paxton Lynch, I believe those Broncos moved up to get Paxton Lynch. He was a part of the brain trust that moved up to get Trey Lance. Obviously, that didn't work either for different reasons. Paxton Lynch just stunk, and I never understood that in Denver. He was garbage. I didn't like him coming out of Memphis. But with Trey Lance, I was all over that. I endorsed that. I thought it was the right move. He just wasn't healthy. And then there's a guy named Brock Purdy. You may have heard of him. Made it easy for them to move on from Trey Lance. Maybe the third time's the charm. That's what I'm hoping. And that's, again, me being positive. Third time's the charm for old Adam Peters, for old AP. Third time's the charm. So anyway, I digress. Y'all get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we will reconvene tomorrow. Trust me. Lots of information will be pouring out of every avenue of social media. Please, I beg of you, be careful out there on those social media streets. It's not for everybody, and I've told you this so many times. Every social media hallway's got some crack in it. Please don't get trapped in it. I beg of you. Be careful. All right. A lot of erroneous information will hit the airwaves tomorrow from a lot of people looking to get people who are too damn eager for information. Just be careful, okay? Being first isn't important tomorrow. It's about being right, okay? Don't get got trying to be first. That's what they're preying on, okay? Anyway, I digress. Y'all get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And I'm ready, Coach. Put me in. Hope y'all ready. Shit's about to get real. You asked for it. Adam Peters and Lance Newmark and his revamped front office and all of its splendor. Dan Quinn and all of his buddies. They all here. Now we're about to see what their vision looks like. Starts tomorrow. Bart Scott. Can't wait. See you guys tomorrow. Sleep tight. Buckle up those seatbelts. It's about to be a hell of a ride. I'll see you then.